It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs and have some fun.
Welcome to Friday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Dottino and Matt Citak with you for the next hour, and we're here to talk Giants football at 201-939-4513, or find us on social media at #GiantsChat. And as always, we are also live on our YouTube channel, so you can also fire off some comments and questions there, and our trusty producer, Pearson, will be all over those and make sure that we try to get to some of those to you as well. An archive of this show is always available on the entire podcast network, the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts, as we come to you from the Giants podcast studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. Well, folks, guess what? There's some NFL news. There has been a hiring, Matt. There has been a hiring. Yes, all these openings all around the league. There's been a hiring. Please, do the honors.
Yes, so I'm not sure exactly if the Dolphins themselves have officially announced it, but it broke this morning that the Dolphins have picked or chosen who they wanted to be their next general manager. They have chosen the Green Bay Packers Vice President of Player Personnel, John Eric Sullivan, to be their new GM. They obviously also yesterday let go Mike McDaniel, so they also have a head coach vacancy now that once this deal is finalized with Sullivan, I'm sure he will immediately start with the head coach search. This is kind of a big deal. There was only a couple of GM openings this offseason. I think Atlanta's the only one left, which they have a complete overhaul. They got rid of everyone. They're hiring a president of football operations, a GM, and a head coach. So, but the reason I feel like this might be, newsworthy to you, to us, is just because
to anybody
to
around
anyone,
the league,
to anyone. Well, first of all, any filling of a GM seat, it is a big deal for sure. But there were 4 finalists for this position that the Dolphins announced only 48 hours ago.
Right.
And one of them was what's his name? Chad Alexander.
Correct.
Who has a long-standing relationship with both Harbaugh coaches, John and Jim. And there was just a lot of, pre-connecting dots saying, if Alexander was chosen to be the Dolphins GM, that might pave the way for the Dolphins to go all out and bring John Harbaugh to Miami. They did not end up hiring John's friend. Reportedly. It's not official yet. They went with someone else. So who's to say what this changes or what it does for, the Giants head coaching
for
vacancy,
anybody.
For the Dolphins, for any of these teams.
For the field. How about that?
For the field, yes. Who knows? But I don't think for those that want a certain person, a certain candidate, apparent, supposed, reported candidate to come coach the Giants here, I would say that this news doesn't hurt those chances.
Well, I just think that for the field, and I think that's important to understand, folks, because we're not in a position to confirm anything that you have seen or read, because quite frankly, the organization gets to make that call, not Matt, not me, not Pearson, who's answering the phones. So don't ask him either, because he's not going to confirm anything, except that it's about 50 degrees and sunny outside. That we can confirm. But in terms of the field, okay, I think everybody who is in that field of play is certainly interested in all of the different permutations, dynamics, and Rubik's Cube pieces as they twist and turn to see what might fit and what might fall where. I think that's the only honest and truthful thing we could possibly say right now.
100%. And I just want everyone at home, I'm sure you guys all realize this, but that Rubik's Cube that, Paul, that you were just talking about, it's not even done. I mean, Mike McDaniel got let go yesterday, several days after the season ended, several days after he spoke to the media in his season-ending press conference, and then Miami decided to make this move. Guess what? There are a bunch of games that start tomorrow, go through Monday night, where if there are certain teams that lose, they could look to move on from their head coach as well, which would A, open up more vacancies across the NFL, but B, also potentially put more very qualified, experienced coaching candidates on the market for all those other teams that have vacancies. I mean, tomorrow night, Bears, Packers, that's a big one because there's just buzz. Again, who knows when it comes to this buzz, but there is buzz out there that if the Packers lose, that LaFleur could be, potentially on the hot seat. Again, who knows? But there's smoke out there for that.
Well,
so if that were to happen, it would, again, open up a pretty appealing vacancy in Green Bay, but also put a very, very good coaching candidate out on the market for all these other teams that have vacancies to potentially pursue.
Well, I'm going to further what you just said because any of these teams that go one and done in the playoffs, should they jettison their guy, that guy immediately becomes a high-level, if not top-shelf candidate for another job because he will have just been to the playoffs.
Yeah.
By definition, that makes him a quality choice.
Yeah.
Or a quality candidate, if you will, for another team.
And on the flip side, the team that now has an opening, it's a playoff team that is looking to hire a new head coach. That becomes a very attractive and appealing destination for the candidates that are already out there.
It would have to.
Yeah.
It would have to
be. Of course.
Why wouldn't you be?
What coach that's looking for a new job wouldn't want to go to a playoff team if they could?
So, really, as I've said to you guys for, is it 2 months now? I've hammered it home on this program as well as every other place I've been on the air. Before you start telling me who you want to be the head coach, let me find out exactly who's in the pool. And I begged everybody, before you start talking about names, there are some pretty big names who could pop free the last week of the regular season or maybe even in the playoffs. I beg people, hold your horses, hold your breath, because the pool is going to expand. And you have no idea how many top-tier guys might become available. So why start naming your preference a month ago, 2 months ago, and people were doing that? Oh, I want this guy to be coach. I want this guy to be the coach. I want McCarthy because he's a free agent, right? People even threw his name out. Oh, he's a free agent who has the best resume of the free agents. Oh, I think you got to have him. Well, hold your horses. Wait till you see who's in the pool. I begged you guys to do that. Most people, including the writers, didn't. But now we see how the pool has not only grown, but may grow some more in a week.
Yeah, I mean, look, at this time last week, not even Monday morning, I don't think many, if any, people expected Baltimore to make a move at head coach. That kind of...
Well, that was kind of...
No, there were whispers of it leading up, but then...
Even the McDaniel thing was kind of a little bit under the rumblings. It wasn't impossible.
There were whisperings, I would say, over the last couple of weeks about Baltimore, if they were to lose against the Steelers or not make the playoffs, that they would potentially look into moving on from John Harbaugh. But even as soon as Monday morning, it seemed like there was more buzz around them making coordinator changes than a change of head coach. And obviously,
a report about that.
By Tuesday afternoon, that got flipped on its head, and then they decided to make a move. There are several other teams that are in the playoffs playing this weekend where those same, similar sort of whispers that have been going on in the league surround those teams. There's at least three that I can think of that are in that situation. Again, none of them could end up making a move. All of them could end up moving on from their head coach. We don't know. We'll find out in 72 hours from now. But this game of musical chairs in terms of head coaching vacancies is I'm not even going to say so far from being over because it hasn't even truly started yet. Because there are more chairs that could potentially become available in the next couple of days.
And look, quite honestly, the most surprising of the guys who was released, I think, because there was the least amount of buzz, was Mike McDaniel. And the timing of his release, too, also made it rather surprising for me.
They obviously let go of their GM at this point months ago. And that, I feel like, immediately put Mike McDaniel on the hot seat and put a lot of eyes towards him. But that Miami team rallied around Mike McDaniel. They closed out the season strong. If they started the season the way they closed it out, they probably would be playing this weekend. So I guess it was a little surprising. I was more surprised about Mike McDaniel specifically just because normally teams don't have the head coach go speak to the media in the end of season press conference a day or two after the season ended and then move on from the guy. If they're going to make that move, typically it happens before you trot the guy out there to speak for half an hour to the media. So once he spoke to the media and we got, a couple of days out of the season, yeah, at that point I thought he was safe too. But if you were going back like 2 months ago,
right,
he was probably right there among the hottest seats of any coach in the NFL.
That's true. I'm talking about in recent vintage now, these last couple of weeks as we were coming down the home stretch. And by the way, should we not also mention McDaniel went to the playoffs twice in his 4 years as the Dolphins coach? So, while that may have been a shocker to some of us and maybe some more of a shock than others, that's another guy who's got a solid resume who is now a free agent, and he's in the pool too. But, the unexpected, right? Yep. Expect the unexpected because you just don't know.
And in terms of McDaniel, I've already seen that there have been teams that have requested to interview him for head coach and also offensive coordinator. That's just an interesting one. There's only one team I saw so far that have seen at least reported interest. I don't know I guess you don't necessarily need to request him now. He's a free agent.
Yeah, he's a free agent.
Well, I've seen just one team that has reported interest in interviewing him for the head coach, several that want to interview him for offensive coordinator. In terms of offensive coordinator, I mean, for him, I feel like the most logical place if he were to go back to being an OC, and as much as I don't want to say this for our sake, it would kind of be Washington, where he got his start, where he's very close with Dan Quinn and would have a chance to work with Jaden Daniels. Now,
understood.
I think Mike McDaniel is a very good offensive mind and a very good offensive play caller. So for the Giants' sake, I hope he does not land in the NFC East. Send him somewhere to the AFC, away from us.
Folks, this is the first weekend of the NFL postseason. Just in case you have not taken a look at the schedule because you've been so tied up reading rumors about coaches and general managers, tomorrow you've got the Rams at the Panthers, the Packers at the Bears, the Jaguars hosting the Bills, the 49ers heading to Philly to play the Eagles, and the Chargers going to play the Patriots. That's on Saturday and Sunday. That's over the weekend. And then Monday night, you've got the Texans going to play the Steelers. So that's what the whole first round looks like. And if you just listen to that list of names that we just talked about, I think you can figure out by looking at the internet and reading all of those wonderful, juicy, tasty rumors that, yes, indeed, there are at least 3 coaches that have been rumored to potentially be on some thin ice if they should get knocked out this weekend. So you can digest that as you will. 201-939-4513 is our phone number here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. And we will go to the phones and start with James in Georgia. You're on line 1 and you're first on the show. Hello.
Hey, guys. What's going on?
Hello.
How you doing?
Happy Friday.
You too.
I called not too long ago just with my coaching searchings and things like that. With you saying let's leave the names out of it, last time I called I didn't really get to my point about the coaches with the kind of searching criteria I put together. But if it was me, instead of just throwing names at a wall like you're saying, I wanted to have, if at all possible, because I know the head coach usually picks his assistants and all that, right?
Correct.
If you can, and I also know, just getting off of, this is not going from lateral move. This is expecting people to take advancement, right? Like, I don't want to bring lateral moves over.
Well, before you go further, remember, even if you want to advance a guy, you do have to ask for permission. If the guy currently works for another team as, let's say, a linebackers coach or a quarterbacks coach, and you'd like to interview him as a coordinator, you've got to go to that team and say, can we talk to him about this promotion? And that doesn't always get granted. So be careful.
Yeah, I mean,
so
there's a guy
are not like almost guaranteed.
No, I mean, there's a guy, one of the reported candidates for the Giants opening that the Giants wanted to, interview to be their offensive coordinator years ago. And at the time, the team that had him as a position coach blocked it. They were like, no, you cannot interview him, despite it being what would have been a promotion from a position coach to a coordinator.
Wide receiver coach to an OC.
So teams don't have to allow it. Most of the time they do, but they don't have to.
It's far from a guarantee.
Okay.
That's the point.
Okay. Well, even with that being said, if I was Joe Shane, my thinking would be my wish list is sort of a mosh posh of coaches. Take the number one ranked units, because statistics are really all we can, go off of in this game. Take the number one ranked units and give me a guy from that coaching staff to rebuild my own staff. Like the number one defense this year was the Texans.
Correct.
And the Texans were number one, and then somebody else was right behind them. I just looked it up, but if I'm
was Denver
going to rebuild my,
they were up there.
Yeah, Denver. So I think I do like Raheem Morris as my DC, but give me somebody from maybe if they have the number one defense, give me their linebackers coach as my head coach. You know what I'm saying? Let's give the step up from that unit to come over here. Let's put together from, John Harbaugh is available, and statistically, Baltimore had the number one offense this year. So
your thinking is raid someone's staff from teams that were at the top of the NFL charts, and then promote
even
those
college
guys.
Levels if you want to reach.
You're willing to go college level as well, and really that's part of the questions that you have to answer before you even decide on the name that you want. You have to decide which of the shoeboxes are you reaching into.
Right.
I personally would reach into the box that has a head coach with previous NFL experience who has at least been to the playoffs. That's the first box that I would reach into, but that's just a personal preference for me. That does not speak to anything that's going on in this building.
Yeah, I mean, Joe spoke about this when he spoke to the media the other day, that they're casting a wide net. Yeah, but they're going into this process without any specific requirements.
Correct.
For who they want to hire. It's not like they have to have previous head coaching experience. They don't have to be an offensive coach or a defensive coach. They're throwing the net wide and seeing kind of what lands, who the perfect fit might be.
So that right there tells me that you can cast the net of kind of, what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be a specific person or somebody with traits. Let's see who has gotten the job done in these specific positions, and maybe it's not for the head coach. Maybe you start to look at candidates to fill out your coordinator position, because there's been coaches that have been saddled with coordinators that they didn't choose. It doesn't always work out. You want, good marriages in the organization. You don't want to ever saddle somebody with, somebody else. But if you like I said, take the best running backs coach and bring them over, or whatever the case may be. And my last point, a couple of the exit interviews, what I really don't like sometimes is trying to project a guy into doing something that he's never done. And I know the last couple of weeks we've been talking about Jackson Dart has to learn how to do things that he's never had to do in college. And my problem is when you pick a guy that you have never seen do something in college, and then you just this has to happen at the NFL. I feel like Daniel Jones never played with any draftable talent, never really had any that good a team in college, and we asked him to be a savior once we drafted him, and that he just never showed to be able to do the things that even Dart has shown us so far. The intangible, the off-script stuff, because he never really did it in college. And Sometimes I fear that we pick players and now we're going to get a new coach who is going to ask them to do things that they've never done before. It's not like they can't be taught or can't do it, but not everybody picks up everything that you're trying to instill with new regimes and new coaching and things like that. So I'll just take your response to that comment off the air, and that was my criteria on my coaching.
Thank you, James.
Thanks, James.
Appreciate it. Well, see, to what James just ended his call with, Pat, and again, this is strictly opinion area. This is not a fact-based thing. This is strictly an opinion area. So everybody can have their own preference, and there's no right or wrong here. I think to his point about asking somebody to come into a chair and to do things that they have never done or never experienced before can certainly be risky business, because you're now projecting that he's going to be able to handle it correctly and successfully. That doesn't mean it can't be done, because at some point, most of the head coaches were coordinators and had to get their first head coaching job somewhere. Right?
Yeah. And also, having an NFL career is about being able to grow and
build.
adapt and, sometimes change your game.
No doubt.
The whole storyline about Jackson protecting himself, and he said that's not a way I've ever played. Well, if you go back to Josh Allen in college, he didn't play that way either.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started his NFL career playing like he did in college, but his game has evolved and grown since he first came into the league, because when you get more and more experience in the NFL, you realize the best way to help your team is by being out there every single week. And you, especially at the quarterback position, sometimes you can't play the way you played your whole life, because at this level, that's going to potentially lead to more injuries, which it didn't in previous stops in your career. So part of being an NFL player and having a successful career as a player or coach is being able to evolve.
No question. And I think that does absolutely hold true for both the coach and the player. You're right. In both situations, I totally agree with that. Many years ago, when I was on one of the sports radio stations that I used to work for here in New York, there was one of the co-hosts who used to call players incubator athletes. And that basically, in his mind, it defined a guy who could really be successful when all the parts around him were in place and everything was going well. He was an incubator athlete or an incubator quarterback or an incubator player, incubator coach. Things are going well. He can just navigate that ship through smooth waters. Well, I appreciated the way he created that definition and that term, because when you become a head coach in the New York City market, it's a pressure cooker. Look, it's not just even coaches, it's players. Big-name players in all sports have come here and not succeeded because it's a different animal, which is why I personally believe you need, I think, to have gotten a guy who is not going to cut his teeth and learn the ropes right out of the get-go and be a rookie head coach. I think that's a dangerous thing to do. I've always felt that way. That's been a personal preference that I have stated for many, many years. Now, the Giants felt the coordinator route was okay with McAdoo because he had been here, right? And he was just getting promoted. They felt that going with Brian Daboll, a coordinator who did real well and had worked with the GM in Buffalo, there was a lot of familiarity there, so they thought it was okay. They found avenues to say, well, there could be a comfort zone here. We think there's a reason that we can make it work. And I understand that. I honestly do. Even Joe Judge, who worked with Bill Belichick in New England, which is a very similar market to us, but not quite as hot, of course, coming from the Belichick tree, felt like, okay, there's a line of comfort there. He's got a better chance to make it work. Well, unfortunately, those things never worked out. The one head coach who came here was Pat Shermer. He did not do well in Cleveland.
Nope.
As it turned out, the fact that he was unable to navigate the Browns out of a hole in Cleveland turned out to be a foreshadowing with the Giants, because when he got here, he couldn't navigate this team out of a hole either. So you have to digest all angles of the equation when you decide which shoebox you're going to grab from. And maybe I'm just a little paranoid because I see how it's worked out the last decade, and maybe that's part of what's also pushing me in my direction of wanting a head coach with NFL experience and with playoff experience. And hopefully, you know what? Hopefully he's already gone through a losing season and has had the experience and the knowledge and the know-how of how to dig out from that. Because that would serve him very, very well, Mr. X, Mr. Coach X, if he comes to the Giants and things get off to a rocky start. You want somebody who knows how to straighten out that ship if water's coming into the hull.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, again, there's a variety of different characteristics, I think, me personally, that I would say are very important in whoever the next leader of that locker room is here. Regardless, though, obviously, we've said this the last couple of times, but the hope is whoever is hired in the next, couple of weeks, they are here for a very long time. No one wants to go through this process again. This is, you just said what? This is the fifth search in the last decade, basically, after the Giants had a history of having at least some stability at the head coaching position. Obviously, before Tom Coughlin, there were guys that did not last as long as Coughlin, but longer than these, 2-year stints that we've unfortunately grown somewhat accustomed to the last decade. Whoever it is, the hope is that this person is here for, a decade plus, and
you'd love to see it.
That's the hope, because no one wants the constant change and turnover. It's not good for anyone. It's necessary. It has been, I'd say, every time the Giants have moved on from a head coach, after 2 years, or even after Dable, after 3.5 years, it was necessary. Time was up. It was very clear it just wasn't working, and a change needed to be made. This next guy, whoever it is, hopefully it is the right pick where this person's here for a very long time. And, whenever this next coach decides to leave, hopefully it's going to be on their own terms after hoisting at least one Super Bowl trophy, if not multiple Lombardis. I think we should all be hoping, instead of kind of saying it needs to be an offensive coach, a defensive coach, a CEO type, let's just get the right guy to lead this locker room. I know it's kind of cliche to say that the Giants are looking for a leader, but that is very much what I think this team needs. You
know what's interesting, and of course it was a different time, especially there was more patience and there wasn't social media. But Bill Parcells had Giants experience, but had never been an NFL head coach. Dan Reeves had been an NFL head coach, came here, did get the Giants out of the mud, got them to a playoff appearance, and then things kind of went a little bit south. Jim Fassel was an assistant with Giants experience, not NFL head coaching experience. Got them to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Tom Coughlin did not, well, he did have the Jaguars.
Yeah.
He did have the Jaguars experience. Let me just stop there. So the point being, you've actually had multiple situations here with previous NFL head coaching experience and without that worked and that didn't work, which is why, folks, there is no right answer. Everybody can have an opinion or an angle on this. There is no right answer other than the Monday morning quarterback who can tell you 3 years from now you picked the right guy. That's the right answer.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we can all have our opinions. Not everyone's going to agree on, we need to hire this one candidate. Everyone's got their own opinion. At the end of the day, the only people whose opinions truly matter are the decision makers upstairs.
They're upstairs.
Joe,
they're upstairs.
Mr. Mara, Mr. Tisch, whoever they decide. It's their opinion that at the end of the day is all that really matters.
All right, let's go to Jake in Columbus. You're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure thing.
So My thought is, and Paul, I know you don't like hypotheticals, but I'm going to bring you into my dream world here for a second.
It's okay.
My thought is, if we are able to get someone like Harbaugh, who is that CEO type, coordinators are obviously very important. And I've heard callers over the last couple of days talk about the potential retention of a guy like Kafka at OC. My wonderment is, do you think Brian Daboll would be willing to come back as OC? He's been a hot name in the reports for OC positions. It's a known commodity in terms of people know that he's a good offensive mind, good offensive coordinator. Clearly he loves Dart. Dart loves him. It would avoid us having our second-year quarterback being in another system in his second year. It sounds like, based on the reporting, he's been talking positively about his experience here and his experience with ownership. Y'all would probably know better than I would in terms of how he's seen in the building and how that all went down. It didn't seem like it was a really negative, bad blood firing, just that it wasn't working. It's with him as the head coach. So I guess I was just curious on your thoughts of potentially bringing someone like that back in that kind of position. I don't know if he'd be willing to do that, but I feel like it would be a really good move, and I can take your answer off air.
Okay, thanks for the call.
Thank you for the call, Jake.
All right, the first part to this answer is none of us have any idea what he thinks about his potential future, and none of us know what upstairs thinks about, bringing guys back into the fold a second time. But history tells us in the National Football League that head coaches teams that part ways with head coaches don't usually, and I don't know if there's a list, maybe there's a list somewhere, maybe you can ask some AI program. I don't believe that head coaches who are jettisoned come back to be coordinators, at least not quickly. They may, a few years down the road, wind up resurfacing. That's possible. But I don't know of any instance when it's happened within a year or within the same year. History tells me that's never happened before. And so I would let that be your guide.
Yeah, I mean, I've come to learn when it comes to, these head coach searches, to not be surprised by anything, because anything could happen. I can confidently say I would be so thoroughly shocked if that ended up happening, months after he was let go.
It would be so far out of the realm of history or possibilities.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Paul, there were two, as soon as you brought this up, there were two guys that immediately came to mind for me, and I looked it up. Vance Joseph was the Denver Broncos head coach.
Mm-hmm.
He obviously got fired after, I think, 2 seasons there. He went on to be the defensive coordinator in Arizona for 4 or 5 years, and then went back to Denver as their defensive coordinator, but it was 5 years later.
A degree of separation.
Yes. 5 years later. And then the other guy, not exactly the same situation, but Raheem Morris was in Atlanta as their defensive coordinator. He was their interim head coach. Not full head coach, but he was their interim head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Then went on to the Rams. Spent, I think it was 3 seasons with the Rams.
Yeah.
And then the Falcons hired him to be their full-time head coach. Obviously, they have since moved on after 2 seasons, but that's besides the point. He was brought back. But again, that was after 3 full seasons apart.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot think of one instance ever where a head coach that was let go in the middle of the season was brought back to be a coordinator just a couple of months later. I've heard of situations where an interim head coach got passed over for that full-time job and then stayed on with the next coaching regime in his former position.
Which doesn't happen a whole lot either.
No, it does not happen often, but it happens more often than this other situation.
Oh, yes. No question.
So I'd be less surprised about, Mike Kafka potentially if he were to stay on as OC with whoever's the next head coach. I'd be less surprised about that. But even that might be, that would be, I think, a little surprising as well.
And remember, the new head coach of any organization is always going to be the guy to pick his coordinators. I mean, it would probably be a needle in a haystack chance that he would actually want that guy who left the building to immediately turn around, do a U-turn, and be his coordinator. The odds of that happening are probably like a gazillion to one.
Yeah, I mean, look, every head coach has an idea of the sort of offense and defense that they want to run. Even guys that are not offensive or defensive play callers, they still know, like, I'm not going to be the one to call it, but this is the type of offense I want run on my team.
Sure.
Or defense. So chances are whoever the next head coach is will have that same mindset and be like, this is what I want to run on offense, this is what I want to run on defense. And again, you never know, but chances are they want to end up bringing in their own offensive play callers and defensive play callers if they're not doing it themselves. That's just what history shows us. That doesn't mean we've seen that there's a first time for everything, first time in a while for everything. So
let's lean on history. For the purposes of this discussion, let's lean on history.
Yeah.
Special Olympics, New Jersey's annual Snow Bowl is heading to Rutgers SHI Stadium in 2026. This annual flag football tournament will be on the field of Rutgers Stadium from March 6th through the 8th coming up this year. The 6-on-6 tournament will feature competitive recreational and co-ed divisions, and all proceeds benefit thousands of Special Olympics New Jersey athletes across the Garden State. Register your team today at njsnowbowl.org. That's njsnowbowl.org. Don't forget the Giants Huddle podcast also continues to be up year-round. Pearson, if you want to chime in here and let us know what John has in store in terms of NFL or Giants personnel.
Yeah, we had Diana Rossini on yesterday, and she talks about coaching search. And then on Monday we'll have Baldy again talking about the offseason and what positions the Giants should prioritize.
Always love hearing from Baldy.
And if anyone, wants to grasp on to some actual, Giants football content before we really get into all the offseason stuff, we did post a couple of videos to Giants.com, Giants YouTube, and the Giants app. We did there was a Sights and Sounds, which those are always awesome, just getting a behind-the-scenes look from the Cowboys game on Sunday. And then also Daniel Bellinger was mic'd up during the Cowboys win. Yeah. Obviously, he was on the receiving end of that crazy Jackson Dart shovel pass play that Daniel Bellinger went on to make what might have been the best play I've seen him make, at least with the ball in his hands, since he was drafted here 4 years ago. It took till the last game of his of his rookie contract, but that play was amazing. He weaved through the Dallas Cowboys defense like it was nothing.
I told him in the locker room it was Mahomes to Kelsey all over again. Yeah, it was really cool.
That was impressive. So it's not that one's not too long of a video, but he is mic'd up, and that play is in the video itself, the celebration after. So if you want to have one final grasp of some, real on-field football content, check those out.
Don't forget the Giants' official connected TV streaming app is also Giants TV. It brings original video content and, of course, all kinds of cool stuff on demand to Big Blue fans. It's free on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app.
Oh, that actually just reminds me.
And yes,
it's not up yet. It will be up in the next, maybe as soon as we get off of air here, but sometime in the next hour.
Mm-hmm.
Another video, which I think you guys will find very interesting. Madeline Burke sat down with a certain quarterback of the Giants. I don't know if you guys remember last year, Malik Neighbors, after his rookie season, sat down and had a sort of lengthy sit-down interview.
Does he have a single-digit number?
He does, yes. Malik did it last year, spoke with Madeline about, his rookie season, moving forward. Madeline sat down with Mr. Dart. That's going to be up very shortly. Highly recommend checking it out. Just another great insight into Jackson and the person he is both on and off the field.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Ron in New Jersey, you're next on the show. Hello.
Hey, guys. Long time since we've spoken, and following with the conversation so far.
Welcome back.
Thank you. And picking coaches, I do get a little crazy when people talk about offensive-minded. We need offensive-minded because presumably the head coach coaches both sides of the ball. So I think that's overplayed. But here's my question. I've been fortunate enough in life to be in a leadership position and surrounded myself with people who knew their areas of expertise better than I did.
Mm-hmm.
And the success, whatever success success I've had in life, I can mostly attribute it to them. When coaches today are going in for these interviews, are they interviewing the person or are they interviewing the staff? Yet, how much
both
are coaches expected to know? And this is where I think experience would give them an edge. But to say, hey, I know Bill's coming up my OC. I know Teddy's going to be my DC. Do you have any insight as to
Ron,
how that works?
Yeah. Here's what happens. If the guy knows he's got a scheduled interview with Team X, what he does on his own, because remember, he's not employed by Team X yet, right?
Correct.
At the moment, he's available.
There's no guarantees. I get that.
So he can make phone calls to anybody he wants to and say, hey, my man, I'm going to go interview with Team X, and I really would like you to be my OC or my DC. And I'm going to tell them that, you're going to be my top priority to do this and that. And he's going to call as many as, who knows, 5, 10, 12, 15 people and say, I'm going to go for this interview with Team X. And I'd love to be able to tell them that you are a great person of interest to me. And if I get the job, I'm going to ask for permission to bring you over. And I'd like to know, do you think there is a real good chance that you would come? Now, that doesn't mean the team that they're working for is going to allow that permission, which is always a sticking point. It's always a sticking point. But Team X, when they then sit down with that guy and they start listening to what he's talking about, they're going to say, okay, and by the way, who are you going to look for your staff? And how confident are you that you're going to be able to get them? That's going to be part of the conversation. There's no doubt. And I've said before,
gives you an edge then if you have that network.
Sure it does. Absolutely it does.
Good.
And I have said many times that if there are two head coaching candidates that are very close, well, listening to how they're going to make up their staff could very easily be the tipping point for me. And I might just say the guy, the guy who's a little bit ahead, maybe all of a sudden he falls behind when I hear the guys he wants to bring in.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as important as the next head coach for the New York Giants is, and obviously, as I just said before, absolutely crucial hire in the next coming weeks. But who is calling the plays on offense and defense? I would put it as, the head coach is the most important. Those two positions, very close number two. Because obviously, as Joe himself mentioned, one of the things that is the most important in this hiring process is, what is your plan for Jackson Dart's development? Right. That is crucial. So whoever is the offensive play caller, whether it is the head coach candidate himself or whoever he plans to bring along as his OC, that position is so crucial because Jackson Dart's development is going to play a huge role in this team's success in the coming years. And the same goes.
I would think they'd even know the quarterback coach by now. Right?
Yeah,
the OC would be able to say, I'm bringing in X as a quarterback.
Very good chance. I mean, look, even we hear every single year, as soon as the season ends and, all these head coach candidates start to get interviews, we hear reports all the time that, Coach X is already compiling his staff, getting his staff together for wherever he ends up landing, whether it's Team X, Y, or Z. So I would think that all or most of these candidates probably have an idea, at least high-level idea of who the important people on their staff are going to be.
And Ron, I would add one other caveat if you'll let me do that, and that is the offensive line coach. As far as the positional coaches, to me, that is right up there with the coordinators. I think because we all know without a good offensive line, you're not going to have a good team.
I agree. All right, real quick, just as a practical matter, when can we expect to know this? To know who the coach is and the staff?
To be 100% honest, well, first of all, I'm going to separate the two. Who the head coach is, that can happen, honestly, anytime, in the coming days to the coming weeks. I would say it likely won't be more than a few weeks where we know who the head coach is.
Okay, good.
In terms of the staff, that could vary. It could be whoever the head coach is could kind of come out right away and be like, this is who I'm bringing as the OC, this is who I'm bringing as the DC, special teams coordinator. But there are other times where it takes weeks to fill out the staff, where we might not know until the combine who the full coaching staff is. That varies.
The more head coaching slots drag on, the longer it's going to take to compile the staff. Because let's say Matt is in contention for a head coaching job, right? And he goes in, and even if it's 3 or 4 days from now, Team X says, Matt, you're our head coach. And Matt's got his whole staff. And now you start asking for permission to get those guys to come over. And all of a sudden you get denied. Well, now you got to start asking other guys. And that takes time.
And not only that, but as I mentioned before, with just one example of Mike McDaniel, but there's more than one. There are going to be guys that are going to be interviewing for head coaching positions and also coordinator positions.
No doubt.
And obviously, most of the time, the guy is going to take a head coach job if he gets an offer, as opposed to going back to being an OC. So there are some, high-level, very talented coordinators that they're going to wait to see how the whole process plays out and make sure that they don't have a chance to get a head coaching job first before they really start considering the coordinator position.
No doubt.
And do you think it's a practical matter anyone from the staff stays?
I mean, it's certainly possible. I feel like the last couple of head coaches, there was a little bit of, consistency.
Some holdover.
A couple of guys that were retained in their roles. It's far from guaranteed. It's going to be up to whoever the head coach is. It's their decision. I'm sure it's up to the head coach. There might be, people in the front office that say, like, we would like to, the choice is yours, but we would like to keep, Coach X. We think he's a great position coach. He did really well here, but at the end of the day, the head coach is, the CEO. He gets to make the choice. And
Ron, typically,
I'll leave you with this quick. Oh, go ahead.
Well, typically, when a new head coach comes in, typically he'll want to keep at least 1 or 2 members of the previous coaching staff because there'll be some level of continuity and familiarity. He would like to have a thread to the locker room.
Institutional knowledge.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
Typically, there's 1 or 2 on the staff that will remain. They probably won't be high-level guys. They'll probably be more positional guys. They won't be coordinators in all likelihood. But just to keep a thread to the locker room, he'll want to make sure there's a familiar face on the team. So it's usually 1 or 2 under most circumstances. Now, Joe Shane did say, when he was asked about this last week, or this past week, he did say he would take those requests on an individual basis. So while he's trying to name a head coach or look for one, if another team comes to him and says, we'd like permission to talk to assistant coach X, he said, look, I'll take it on an individual case basis as to whether or not we'll let them go talk to them.
Right.
Because he also wants to protect his own interests, knowing that maybe the guy he brings in wants to keep that guy.
Right. And then, of course, the gravitas of the coach that comes in will matter, too, as to who he
wants
and doesn't want.
Of course.
And so we know, Paul, I'm your age. We've met at practice a few times. We've had 2 Super Bowl winning head coaches in our lifetime of the Giants.
Sure.
I want somebody in the mold of those 2 guys. That's my 2 cents.
I got you.
But keep up the good work, guys. I appreciate it. I love listening.
Thank you, Rod. Please call again.
The one thing I will say, just to a comment you just made about coordinators are not typically held, I will say there is some recent examples within this building of coordinators being retained through head coaches. I mean, Thomas McGahee was hired by Pat Shurmur to be the special teams coordinator. He was there for those 2 seasons, 2 seasons with Joe Judge, and the first 2 seasons with Brian Dable.
Very rare to see a guy last through 3 coaches.
100%.
Very rare.
100%. But there was also, when Brian Dable was hired, there reportedly was interest in him retaining Patrick Graham at his position, and then Patrick Graham ultimately decided to take a different DC job. But reportedly there was interest about and I think Dable even spoke about when he first was introduced as head coach in early 2022 about wanting to keep Patrick Graham as the defensive coordinator. So those are just 2 examples of the last couple of years where the head coach either did keep one of the coordinators or had a strong interest in keeping the coordinator, and then the coordinator himself decided it was time for a change. But it's not completely unheard of, is my point.
Right. And by the way, Thomas McGahee was actually let go by the Buccaneers within the last 24 hours. A guy who, it's no secret, he battled through cancer and went through a living hell in a fight for his life, and is a hell of a guy. And a really good coach, to be honest with you. I'm a little surprised that things did not work out in Tampa and they set him free. But a guy who I will always root for.
Yep.
To be honest with you.
For.
Always. And quite frankly, that's one of the things that happens over the course of time. You will find that just because the way the coaching cycle goes, it's not a reflection very often, not always, but it's not a reflection on a assistant or a coordinator who moves on because a new head coach came in. Sometimes, in fact, very often, it's strictly a preference that the new head coach wants guys from his background or from a certain coaching tree, and it doesn't mean the guy you had, Coach Y, if you will, it doesn't mean that Coach Y was bad at his job. He could be great at his job. But because the new guy comes in and just says, look, I got my guys, you're gonna have to go.
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying before, head coach candidates go into interviews with an idea of like what they want to run on offense or defense. So if they want to run a certain system on either side of the ball, and the coordinator that had been at the Team X previously, that is still technically under contract, runs a completely different offense, then obviously it's just, you don't want to try to put a circle peg into a square hole. Like, it's just not going to fit. You want to bring in the guy that's going to run the type of offense or defense or special teams that you want to run. Mm-hmm. So I agree. It doesn't necessarily mean that the coordinator is bad. I mean, a lot of the time we see these coordinators land the same position with another team. Again, T-Mac was just one example. Immediately got picked up by Tampa Bay and was their special team coordinator for a couple of years. Patrick Graham has been in Vegas as their defensive coordinator for 4 years.
Tom Quinn is in New England.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole list of former Giants coordinators that are still coordinators.
No question. All right, quickly, before we go, unless somebody else wants to chime in at 201-939-4513, quickly about the playoffs coming up.
Yep.
So the first two games that we talked about earlier, the Rams, Panthers, Packers, Bears, those are the Saturday games. And then the following three are the Sunday games, and then the Texans and Steelers are on Monday night. Is there anything in particular that tickles your fancy about something that you are really curious about, that you really want to see about this weekend's playoff games?
Yeah, to be honest, there's something in almost every game that I'm interested in seeing. I'll just keep this brief. The first game, Rams-Panthers, Matthew Stafford, potentially league MVP with the season he had. Can he put together another, Cinderella storybook run in the playoffs now, which starts tomorrow night or tomorrow afternoon? Well, Devontae Adams has been cleared to play, so he will be out there. But
yes,
is he going to be fully healthy? Is it going to be just leaning on Puka? We shall see. Tomorrow night, every time the NFC North plays against each other, it's, you're in for a good game.
Indeed.
And especially the game is in Chicago with the weather they're supposedly going to get tomorrow night. It's going to be one of those classic winter NFC North showdowns where I feel like the ground game is going to completely dominate on both sides. But I'm very much looking forward to that game. Moving over to Sunday, personally, I think Bills-Jaguars is going to be a great game. Jaguars might be the hottest team in the NFL right now. One of the hottest teams in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, all I need to say, Josh Allen. You have him at quarterback, you have a chance to beat literally anyone.
Yes, you do.
49ers-Eagles might be the best overall game of the entire weekend. I mean, those are two teams. I know the 49ers coming off a not-so-great offensive performance, but that is still one of, if not the best offenses in the NFL when everyone's healthy. And the Eagles, when they're firing on all cylinders, right up there with the 49ers.
Yep.
And also NFC East, I will, just always root against the Eagles.
No doubt.
Sorry.
I got you.
Chargers, Patriots. Again, Patriots, Drake May, the other guy in the MVP race with Stafford. Even though if you look at their stats, I don't know how it's much of a race.
I know.
One guy's stats are a lot better than the others.
That game is very curious to me.
I don't know how that one's going to go.
I don't know either. And it could be either really, really fun or it could be a real snooze fest.
Yeah, because those are two very good defenses.
Yeah.
I know the offense is in every game, the offense is the splashy thing that people want to see, a lot of points and stuff, but the Chargers defense is very legit. There's a reason why Jesse Minter across the NFL at all these different head coaching openings is getting a lot of interest. and then 14-3 New England Patriots under Mike Vrabel and Drake May.
I know.
That's the quarterback head coach duo that has got some people, maybe even our producer here, dreaming about the old days in New England with a certain other quarterback and head coach.
He needs
combo.
to relax.
Who, Pearson?
Yeah, he does. He needs to relax. Pearson, you know what? I see the phones are ringing. A couple people want to get in here. Let's try to just sneak in 2 real fast ones. We'll put these people on the no-huddle offense, and we'll see if they can just sneak in here.
And just real quick,
Finally, Texans-Steelers.
Last game, Texans-Steelers, that might be the one I'm least interested in. I don't have much to say about that. I feel like that's going to be just a low-scoring, gross game. I guess Aaron Rodgers and potentially his last year going up against the best defense in the NFL. Let's see what he can do. But if that game ends up being, 16-13, I would not be surprised.
I get you. The 2 things about that game, 3 things about it. Rodgers, yes, possibly his last game. Tomlin, who knows what's going to happen to him. And then the fact that the Houston Texans defense, I love watching them. I'm a big, big defensive lover. So when I see what the Houston defense does to people, I get excited watching their tape. All right.
Defense is legit.
That's for sure. All right, let's sneak in a call here if we can get to this one. Pearson, what do we got?
Giovanni,
let's go. You're next on the show.
Hey, Paul. Hey, Matt. How you guys doing?
Hi.
Good. How you doing?
Hey, good. It's been a while since I talked to you guys. So I do have to say, I think a lot of Giants fans are just split right down the middle between Kevin Stefanski. I know personally myself, I think he's just another Pat Shurmur. Not a huge fan of him. I don't like him at all. I think he's going to have a potentially huge bust factor as a head coach.
You do know he's won 2 NFL Coach of the Year awards, right?
Yeah, I understand.
I mean,
just
to be fair, the track record between him and Shurmur is quite different. Just to be fair.
Right. The last 2 seasons are just like how Brian Dable's seasons have gone. So I don't really see any upside to him.
Okay.
I don't like him at all. But John Harbaugh, Giants fans got to kind of keep their cool. I'm not really sure what the expectation is. Obviously, there's news and rumors and all that, but I think he's obviously number 1, and he'd be the clear candidate. But if it's not those 2, I think Mike McCarthy's on the same level as being a top candidate. If not, personally, I think it's either Kubiak or Halfley or maybe a Jesse Minter. But, I mean, really, at the end of the day, you're going for the big swing. So it's got to be John Harbaugh. I mean, I guess you settle for Kevin Stefanski, but Mike McCarthy's my number 2. So that's just my opinion.
All right.
Just kind of wanted to put that out there. Thanks,
That's
guys.
why we gave you a chance to be on the record.
Thank you, Giovanni.
Thank you so much for calling, and please call again.
Now, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, as we said before.
Of course.
About all these candidates.
Nobody's right.
Nobody's right. Nobody's wrong.
Correct.
The only thing I will say, just in defense slightly of what Giovanni was saying about Kevin Stefanski, is, as you mentioned, 2-time Coach of the Year. If you just look at who he had at quarterback for his entire tenure as the Browns head coach, he wasn't working with a lot there. I'm just putting that nicely. The best quarterback he had during that period, I guess, was Deshaun Watson pre all these injuries, but also coming off of the injury he had in Houston. So it wasn't really pre all these injuries, and it wasn't the same Deshaun Watson. He wasn't working with a whole lot, and he seemed to get a lot out of what he did have there. It's the only thing I respect Kevin Stefanski as a coach, just generally speaking, not necessarily about the Giants opening. I just had to defend him in that little bit, because if you just look at the team that they had on offense over the 5 seasons there, he wasn't working with a lot.
The caller can have an opinion that he doesn't care for him, but to compare the resume between him and Shurmur, there is no comparison.
Yeah, that's the point.
It just doesn't. The comparison
Shurmur had
does
2
not
years
exist.
in Cleveland that went so horrendously poor.
You can't ignore 2 NFL coaches of the year.
He did have a successful stint as the Vikings offensive coordinator, and just kind of bring it full circle, since he did compare them. I was saying before about how the Giants, when they hired a coach, wanted to bring someone along who was a position coach to be the offensive coordinator, and that the team got blocked. You know who that was? That was Kevin Stefanski.
Yes.
As the quarterbacks coach that Shurmur wanted to bring as the OC, and Minnesota said no. So just kind of full circle moment here. That
folks,
yeah.
Enjoy the first round of the playoffs. We'll be back here on Giants.com and the Giants YouTube channel for another edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live on Monday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. As always, we are here every single weekday. Jot down the number 201-939-4513. And hopefully, we'll have a few more answers next week because these, let's say, soap opera stories that continue to float around every single day. I hate chasing this stuff around. I just want to play football. I want to talk about the team that they're playing this weekend. I do not like the offseason. It becomes very tedious and becomes a whole lot of speculation and hypotheticals, and we don't need those things. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. As always, we have come to you from the Giants Podcast Studio, presented by Hackensack Meridian Health. Keep getting better. For Matt Citak, I'm Paul Dottino. Have a great weekend, everybody.